What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? My name is Nathan Allen, and we
Hi.
are your Heel Brothers. And today, we're getting into the Florida State Scouting Report. It is Week 10, and North Carolina is getting ready to go down to Tallahassee to face the Florida State Seminoles, a different kind of Florida State Seminoles team than we saw in the last couple of years, especially a big difference from last year and this year. So, who better to come here and cover the Florida State Seminoles for us outside of Michael from Plant the Spear? How you doing today, buddy?
Hey, Hill Brothers. Thanks for having me on. So grateful to be here. Grateful to join the Hill Brothers. Love what you guys are doing. Just so impressed with the work. And, it's great to be able to support another ACC brother, in that sense. And my partner, who's actually our founder and leader, Jesse, asked me to step in and toot our flag today. So grateful to help you guys out.
Absolutely, man. We absolutely enjoy you guys. I got to speak with Jesse back during the ACC kickoff time. He kind of started to give me some inside information of how to potentially get into the kickoff. So absolutely appreciate him and what he's did there for us, and also sent us a Mac Brown interview that was able to post out to our fan base for people to be able to see that interview. He got asked, I think, a one or two questions in there as well, and I thought that was just pretty cool, man. So I've been looking forward to getting with you guys, man. You've been on, you've been a couple of teams. There's a couple of teams on here I've been looking forward to getting to talk to. You guys have been one of them, and we got ourselves a conversation. And honestly, this is a conversation I didn't think we was going to be having this time this year for either one of our teams, quite frankly. North Carolina coming into this game 4-4 on the season, just finally got a win off of a 4-game skid against Virginia. And Florida State is a team that has had some issues, to say the least. So, Michael, kind of give us a breakdown of what North Carolina fans should expect from this Florida State team coming this Saturday.
Well, I think it's a great question, Nathan. Obviously this game's at Doak Campbell Stadium. We're not entirely sure if this is going to be even close to, and I say quote unquote sellout because, as you might know, our stadium is under renovation right now. And so the west sides of the stands, only half of the west side of the stands is even usable. They've brought in portable stands for the west side. And if you see it, you go look at some images online, it goes about halfway up, and then you can't even use the rest because they're doing remodeling right now on the stadium. I forget what the price tag is, but it's in the millions. I think it's like $250 million renovation that's happening right now. So the east side, it's great. We need it, but it's looked terrible in a terrible season. So
can we get a loan?
Yeah, exactly. Man, can we get a loan? Because we're trying to get out of this conference. The east side and the two north and south side are still available, and so we're not even entirely sure that we're going to see a lot of fans if the students are going to show up. So what UNC fans who travel to this game or watch it, what you're going to see is a disinterested fan base. Florida State has gotten to this space where this is the worst season in program history. Program history. That says a lot, right?
Wow.
Yes. And so you have a fan base that's pretty checked out because we're basically waiting to that last game. We can't make a bowl now. So we're just basically waiting till the clock hits 0 against the University of Florida. And we're ready to figure out who's getting fired, how many players are leaving, and who we're going to go get to try to fix this mess we're in. So you're going to see some of that. I think you're still going to see, for the most part, a team that's going to compete. But if UNC gets up by 14 points, okay, then you're going to see a team that quits, because that is what has basically happened in a lot of the games. Because the defense will play, and I know we're going to get into all offense defense, but as an overall look, the defense will play hard. But as soon as North Carolina gets up to 14 points and the offense has not scored, you start to see the defense start to slip, because we know that Florida State has not scored more than 16 points on U.S. soil. Okay. We have not gotten over 16 points since we came back from Ireland. We've not got anywhere close to it. We've played some terrible defenses and still cannot score over 16 points on U.S. soil. And so that's been extremely frustrating to the defense. And of course it is. We have wide receivers that drop balls. We have offenses can't block. We have quarterbacks making bad reads, bad throws, can't run, get injured, the whole 9 yards. And so I would say, as a summation, that's probably what UNC fans are walking into. You should feel very confident that you're going to leave Doak Campbell Stadium. You're going to leave Doak Campbell Stadium for only the third time in the UNC FSU rivalry history with a win.
It's kind of funny you mention that because the odds makers say it's coin flip. They got a 2.5-point favorite for Carolina currently as we sit right now. I think it opened up at a 2-point, but it's moved to 2.5. 53.1% says ESPN matchup predictor. But I want to talk to you. You talking about worst season in Florida State history. That's saying something right there. I mean, you guys have had some legendary coaches, Bobby Bowden being, I think, the most synonymous with Florida State, obviously, a good longtime friend of Mac Brown. Mac actually talked about in his press conference this past week at how, back when Mac was here the first time, they ran in when North Carolina looked like they were getting ready to push for the national championship. They ran into, I think it was a 1-2 matchup against Florida State and lost that game 20-7 or something of that nature. And he was talking about, how great those Florida State teams were and everything. And
that's right.
Mac Brown has not had a good record against Florida State, even with him coming back this last time. Currently, they've got a 2-game win streak. So, 0-11 against Florida State. And Mac's looking for his first win. They're currently on a 2-game win streak back in 2020 and 21 against North Carolina. But I want to talk about Mike Norvell for a second. This is a guy that took over the helm for Florida State just a couple of years ago. He started building the program up pretty immediately, and it really, encapsulated the 2023 season. That's where it hit its peak right there.
Yeah.
So far that we know of. Last year, you guys were a dominant team. Top to bottom, left to right, dominant team. Jordan Travis was a great quarterback. I hated to see that he got hurt because, quite frankly, I'm going to be real. I am not a Florida State supporter whatsoever. I'm just not. But when I saw you guys, I was like, yeah, this is a daggum good football team. And they played that way all the way through and through. Great players. We were kind of talking about off air. Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, two guys were able, as Los Angeles Rams fans, were able to enjoy still. But you guys had a great season last year, ended with an ACC championship and I will say a debauchery of a skid out of the college football playoffs. I don't know how it is, whatever. But let's talk about Mike Norvell. There's some questions that I have about him when it comes to transfer portal. And this is just from an outsider. You tell me what you guys think on the inside. But when you talk about a team and you talk about a team that has success, culture matters. And he used his ability in the transfer portal last season going into the 2023. You brought in Keon Coleman, Jared Verse, and all these types of guys that ended up being cornerstones for your team going on through that year. But you had some very well-known players that were, like Jordan Travis, that were there as cornerstones that already had built the culture, and these guys were just kind of added in on top. Tell me about this year, because you lost all of those players. All of them were gone, and you brought in something brand new with the transfer portal. Do you believe that this season for Mike Norvell has been bad because of Mike Norvell, or is it just because he tried to replace a ton of people from the transfer portal and it never really gelled right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the former of what you said. Or I'm sorry, it's the latter. Sorry, the latter. Mike Norvell didn't forget how to coach. I mean, the dude was the hottest coach in going into that 2020 season. I mean, when Florida State was looking to hire a replacement for Jimbo Fisher in 20 going into that 2018 season, Mike Norvell was interviewed, but they for some reason, don't know why, landed on Willie Taggart instead of Mike Norvell. He basically came in second. That was a disaster. And then they went back to correct it and grab Mike Norvell. I mean, he just came off of beating Cincinnati twice at the end of the season and winning the AAC championship. He didn't forget how to coach this year. The problem was And you have to, and I know every time people hear this, they say, "Oh, you're just being whiny, 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 whiny." But this is not about the snub. It was terrible. We've oversaturated that talking point. But you
Right.
have to talk about it to understand why Florida State is in this position. When the snub happened, it was catastrophic in the sense of it. They were supposed to get the invitation to the playoff and then go on the road to recruit. Well, then the snub happened, and it was like, holy cow. You basically had Mike Norvell's message to those players last year was, you do the thing, you win the game, you show up, you compete, you respond, you do all of that, and the chips will fall where they may, and it should fall to an invitation to the playoffs. Well, when that invitation doesn't come, these players decide, whatever, I'm gonna go get mine because I did everything you told me I was supposed to do, and we still got screwed. Well, that mentality then played into a lot of the returning players who were coming back to say, well, I'm coming back. Like, I need you to pay me more. Well, we just got screwed in the playoff. We're not trying to take a backseat. So it forces our collective, the Battle's End, and Mike Norvell and the staff to basically, in a lot of ways, be bent over backwards for NIL money. Okay. So you have that. Then when you go 13-1 or 13-0, you're coming off the heels of going 10-3. You're coming off winning 19 straight games. You're coming off going 23-4 over the last few years. Your high school recruiting momentum should be really good, right? But then what we also saw was that over the last couple years, they would have these huge, I mean, massive signing day flips where we would get embarrassed on signing day, like with Travis Hunter, with Kevin Falk, with KJ Bolden to Georgia. Like, it just kept happening. And you were not seeing the high school the high school momentum build as much. So then you go into the portal because now you got to fill these holes. And there is the talking point right now in the Florida State fan base. And it's been, I'm not going to say verified because we don't have access like some of the other media that covers Florida State do, but it's been very widely talked about by those that do, is that the assessment that went into this past season and the transfer portal was not as good. They did not assess very well. And Mike Norvell we did an episode on this at Plant the Spear on YouTube. You can catch all that on the YouTube channel. But we did an episode in the preseason where we showed literally Mike Norvell had a 95% boom rate on transfer portals. 95%.
Wow.
He was hitting on 95% of them. So, of course, we're going to trust his assessment and the players that he bring in. This is the first time in the 5 years that he's been there that he's got almost a 95% bus rate on each person he's brought in to this season. So you compound
That's dramatic.
everything that happened this season. He made some terrible choices on the recruiting trail, and he's allowed this coaching staff that have not been great high school recruiters to get lazy in their portal evaluations. So they just brought in bodies thinking, oh, we just get these bodies, we'll do it again, we'll hit rate and all those things, and it didn't hit. And then you had the compounding when he started the season, and I'll throw this back to you guys. He started the season by saying, this is the best offensive line I've ever had. And DJ was brought in to be a quarterback to not win games, but to not lose games because we thought we were going to be able to run the ball. Well, when we couldn't run the ball, we had to throw the ball. Then we found out that we had wide receivers that cannot catch. We have one of the top 5 drop rates in the country. And I know we'll get into those stats, but wait till we get into these stats and we go off and you see how bad this offense is. That has compounded to this perception that maybe Mike Norvell is not a good coach. No, he didn't forget to coach. He made some really bad decisions this offseason that has led to this.
Wow, you put a band-aid
Wow.
on a lot of things. Yeah,
That's
I
a
didn't know.
band-aid on a bullet hole. So
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
that's
Might be a
that's not even a
cannonball
bullet
hole, man.
hole. I was about to say that's like trying to put a band-aid on somebody that just laid down on a grenade.
Yeah, basically. They're in 50 million pieces, and you're like, Band-Aid, Band-Aid, Band-Aid. Nah.
Okay, well, let's talk defense since the offense is atrocious. Shaheem Brown, he leads the team in tackles with 52. You have 3 players along the defensive line that has 2.5 sacks each. So your defensive line is still getting it done. So the defense is only giving up 26 points a game. But where's the disconnect on defense? Is it that they just can't get the stops when they need it to keep FSU in the game? Or is it just your offense is just so unreliable that the defense just lets it just doesn't carry? At a certain point, does the defense just throw their hands up like, what else you want me to do?
Is there an option D to select all above of what you just said there?
Yeah. I can plug that in on the multiple choice question.
Yeah. So basically, it's all above. But here's where it really starts: is coming into this year, they, obviously we had to replace, like incredible players in Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, but we also had to. They were,
oh God, all worldly.
Yeah, all worldly, right? They were awesome.
Godly.
I mean, literally, ACC championship. Jared Verse tackled a dude by using another offensive lineman to tackle a dude. Like, that's how crazy this was. Like, I mean, the dude was a
Thank
beast.
you, Sean McVay.
Thank you, Sean McVay. Exactly. And so coming into this year, they had to replace that line. They went out and got Marvin Jones Jr., who his dad, we nicknamed Shade Tree, played at Florida State. And Florida State ended up second in that recruitment. He went to Georgia. He had a so-so time at Georgia, but we thought, oh, man, this is going to be a plug-and-play replacement for Jared Verse. They went out and they got Daryl Jackson. He couldn't play last year to the NCAA rules, but he was wrecking practices last year. There were reports that he had to be held out because the offense couldn't get the stuff done because he was wrecking practices. We brought Josh Farmer back. We brought in Durjai Tamawa from West Virginia. We brought in Siona Lolohe from Oregon State with DJU. And then we got Grady Kelly from, I can't even remember the low-level school we got. But we thought, okay, this is just going to be a plug and play. Then we went out and got Sean Murphy from Alabama, Juice Cryer from Auburn for the linebacker. And also I'm spacing on another linebacker there. Oh, Cam Riley from Auburn as well. From there to take the linebacker spot. So the problem has been what started early in the season was we weren't getting enough pressure with our front four. That was a big problem early. Then, which was allowing then running backs, and you guys got one that has 1,000 yards and really scares us to death this weekend, to get to the second level of our linebackers who were not very good. So now you're having safeties having to come down and cover run fits where that should be the linebacker, right? So now when your running back, when the opposing team's running back is at the third level of your defense, you're 5, 6 yards, 7 yards per carry down the field, right? So that was a problem. Then the second thing that was a problem was miscommunication. Georgia Tech exposed Florida State in its communication. They were running a lot of Adam Fuller is a huge man-to-man defense guy. So Georgia Tech was running a lot of man beaters, wheel routes, rail routes, deep ins, deep outs, crossing routes. And they weren't communicating. I mean, we were letting guys run wide open in the secondary, in the second level of our defense because the linebackers. And so teams took advantage of that. The defensive backs were then put in bad situations. They weren't terrible. They were just put in bad situations. Well, the defense has gotten better. The problem, and I'm sure you guys probably have the same issue where you get in the third downs, it's 3rd and 20, and you're like, now, most college football teams, right? Help me out here. They figure out how to get off the field on 3rd and 20. However, at Florida State, we figure out how to stay on the field for 3rd and 20. And so we have this we used to have this defensive coordinator named Charles Kelly, and he was synonymous with us giving up ridiculously long 3rd down. So we started calling it 3rd and Kelly. Well, now we're literally calling it 3rd and Fuller because it's asinine that we have 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15, literally against Miami. We had a 3rd and 20. It shouldn't. it should not even gotten close to conversion, and they converted it like they were shredding cheese. It was just so easy. And so that's been the problem with the defense. They start the game really hard. They play really hard. They're 41st in, I believe, in red zone scoring defense. Yeah, they're 41st. So if you get into the red zone, it's hard to score on them. They'll block kicks. They play really hard. But after a while, the offense, Mike Norvell is a very analytic guy. He goes for it on fourth downs. He has put the defense in really terrible situations. And after a while, at some point, when your offense is not scoring, you just kind of lose, the desire to want to play hard, because you just know, man, if they get the score, this game is pretty much over. That's what happened in the SMU game. That's why that game got away. You saw the Miami game get away. And I'll throw this back to you. This was the most this was the most damaging comment I've ever heard a head coach say about Florida State football. Mario Cristobal at halftime, they asked him, "Are you frustrated that you've had to settle for field goals?" And he said, "No, because we've established the line of scrimmage." Basically saying, as long as we don't mess this up, they ain't scoring another point.
Boy. Alan, we've had a lot of teams on here that sound a lot like us.
Well, I think the ACC has a lot of teams that are just alike.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it all starts up front, and that's been a big issue for both of our teams, to say the least. But I want to flip it on its head. This right here, going back to offense, most pivotal and most important position on the football team, quarterback position. It's something that North Carolina and Florida State have had issues with this year. Florida State, for different reasons, like North Carolina. Carolina having a quarterback get injured, a second quarterback to come in that was not ready to play quarterback at a college level. Then you have the third one, which thankfully had played for you before, had been here before, and been in college for 5 years, and has now got himself caught up to speed a little bit, so you feel a little bit more comfortable about it. On the flip side, DJU comes in for Jordan Travis from last year. He comes in. I have not been a DJU fan outside of one night, and he did me a great favor for 3 series, and then after that, he was no longer in the game. Thank you, Dabo Swinney. So when y'all picked up DJU, I immediately looked at this team and thought to myself, okay, are they saying something on Oregon State film that I'm not? Because I kept an eye on it, because I have a buddy of mine that's a big Clemson fan, so I'd keep an eye on it for him. And I wasn't very impressed. And I was surprised at the pickup. But unfortunately, he's gotten hurt. He didn't start the season all that well, but he's gotten hurt. And now you guys are going back and forth between Brock Glenn and, please, for the love of God, help me with the last name of the second guy.
Luke Kromenhoek.
Kromenhoek. Okay, that name's a lot cooler than what I was going to make it sound like. But there is even... So they're kind of doing a 2 QB system as we see right now, but it sounds like, I've saw, now again, what your insiders, know, I'm not privy to that knowledge. Please let us know. But there is a idea that Kromenhoek could potentially redshirt because he's still eligible. He can play 4 games and he can redshirt. Is that still a thing, or you think Mike Norvell is going to try and keep this 2 QB system?
Yeah, that remains to be seen. I think when Kromenhoek came in really in that Duke game, Brock Glenn had literally had back-to-back turnovers, 2 interceptions and a fumble. And so he was pretty much, he was like a starting pitcher who just could not hit the strike zone. So Mike Norvell brings in Kromenhoek to kind of like let Brock calm down. And you saw some moxie from the true freshman. You saw him make 2 incredible throws. By the way, both were dropped because we lead the nation in drop passes. And you saw him like make some reads. You saw him run the ball, like be active with his feet. And so you thought, interesting. Maybe he is a little bit more ready than we thought. So then in the Miami game, they made a concrete plan to bring him in at certain points. Well, Brock didn't do anything early. They bring Luke in. The offense is actually moving and doing some stuff. And then he ends up staying in longer than I think they planned because they were liking what they were doing. And then at the end, because it was pretty much already determined, and Florida State needed to run 2 minutes to try to at least get another score on the board, they brought Brock back in, and he was able to get the offense down for a touchdown. So it remains to be seen if they're going to try to keep his option of a red shirt open, or if Mike is determined what Florida State fans have been calling for, which is a youth movement to try to get ready for next season. Because Florida State doesn't have a bowl game, these rest of this season is our preparation into the offseason and into the spring. We have to use these games to see what we got so that what they know they need to go get. Also, and I'll throw this back to you on this, is that, Luke is for all intents and purposes, Luke has proven that he is the future of that room. Like, Brock is good, but Luke has shown he's much better. And so I also kind of see this is my opinion. Jesse might have a little bit of different, maybe close to a different one, but my opinion is I think Mike Norvell is trying to, in a way that he thinks is good, to send a signal to Luke, like, hey, you don't mess this up, and you've got the odds-on favorite for the starting position going into next season. Now, again, that hasn't been publicly said, hasn't been indicated. He's playing his coach speak about both quarterbacks, but that's what it looks like to me headed into the offseason.
In the spirit of using the next 4 games to prepare for next season, who or player or players do you see on the Florida State defense that North Carolina needs to watch out for Saturday at 3:30? But also the player, like, they can be the same. The ones that have the most upside for next season.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. I think for this Saturday, what the players that UNC needs to be on the lookout for, especially on the offensive side, is for defensive Florida State, is number one is Josh Farmer. He is a wrecking ball of a player. He is not going to be like your high sack, but he is a disruptor. I mean, he is. I think he has. He's graded out PPF almost every game really well. He gets into the backfield. He's hard to contain. He's got a relentless motor. He gives offensive linemen, I mean, they just do not look forward to playing him. And then secondarily to that on the offensive line is Daryl Jackson. Again, when his mindset is into, I need to play as hard as I possibly can, those two combinations and the stunts that they run up front and the games they run up on that defensive line make them actually one of the best. Nick Saban said this at the beginning of the season. This is what makes me think we're not crazy for thinking we should have went 10-2. Nick Saban said these are NFL players on this defensive line, like not just like 4th or 5th. These are 1, 2, 3 round draft picks on the NFL line. And so those two on the defensive line there, those are two players you need to watch out for, because they will wreck your day on that off. If your offensive line is anywhere suspect in that A-B, yeah, everywhere you're suspect, yeah, in that A-B gap. And then in the secondary, you mentioned Shaheem Brown. He's the leader of the defense there. He's a ball hawker. You have Azareye'h Thomas, who's NFL quality cornerback there. And then with a lot of upside going to next year is Earl Little Jr. He just recently moved to the safety position. I mean, he's looking to put somebody in the hospital every week. He transferred in from Alabama. Alabama tried to keep him. That was one of the few players they actually tried to keep. Florida State was able to get him in the transfer portal. He started early and didn't play very well at corner, so then kind of got benched. They moved him to safety, and then he showed up in the Miami game, made some great hits. He's actually a meme now, so remind me to show you the meme that they've made of him. He tackled and dove for something, and now they have him like planking. I don't really know, but he's a talent to look out for. I'd also talk about Quindarius Jones, another cornerback that has shown flashes this season as well. KJ Kirkland, who's a safety, has shown flashes this season as well. So that the secondary is actually the one position with our secondary coach, Patrick Surtain, that we've actually recruited the high school ranks well. And the additions we've brought in from the portal have actually panned out very well as well, too.
That's gonna be an interesting matchup, honestly. I think because I'm pretty sure the news of the Florida State defensive line, spread the ACC. I know we picked it up over here pretty well, and I know of a couple other fan bases that have knew about Florida State's D line coming into the season, and I'm kind of curious to see how Carolina's going to do with that. With a young offensive line that's first come in, they're finally healthy. They got to play a full healthy game this past weekend. I thought they played very well. I only think Jacoby got touched, but maybe one or two times. So I'd be curious to see what our young O line does against that pass rush and how that D line it disrupts us and see what they do. So it's going to be an interesting matchup there. So
Yeah,
you kind of what's that?
I was gonna say, yeah, I'll tell you this. If you go back and watch that Miami game early on, Miami could not find running lanes, and Miami's scheme, how they run their scheme, it's basically like a split zone or inside zone. They're not running any complicated running scheme. And towards the middle of the second quarter and on, Miami was able to begin to get penetration into the second level with their offensive line. And their offensive line is, they're good. They're not that great. And so if UNC, I think that's going to be one of the keys for you guys is you should run the ball. Florida State's rush defense. Yeah. Florida State's rush defense is 80th in the country. So if you guys want to win this game, you should run the ball.
Well, yeah, I definitely believe there's going to be a healthy dose of Omari and Hampton. We'll see exactly how that goes. I feel like Chip Lindsey likes to get a little creative with his running games at times.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how this thing goes. Typically, we're more of a inside zone type of team. That's just kind of where we inside outside zone. That's typically what we like to do. So
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see
As
how
long as we
Omarion
stay
does.
away from the double reverses. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you got to pull those out when you're already up like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Bring that out then. Don't bring it
Well,
out in the middle of a.
they ran that play to McCollum twice and it lost like 18 yards combined.
Yeah, it was not a good idea. Not a good idea, especially at the point in time of the game in which it was. If they would have done it kind of mid to late third quarter, okay, fine, whatever, just screw it. But not in the middle of an actual drive you needed to score a touchdown on.
Yeah.
Because it was a tie ball game. Hey, we don't get paid the big bucks to do that stuff, but Monday morning quarterback. But you kind of changed my last question here. So, you talk
he
about all
completely
those weapons on the defense. Okay. Who are you guys going to on offense?
Man, right now, the most that's a great question.
That was when you lead off with man.
Right.
I don't
when I have
even
to start with man, this is not going to be a great answer. Right now, I would say the two most consistent players on offense has been our senior leader running back, Lawrence Toafili. I mean, the guy's been here through the worst, the high, and back to the worst again. And what's so frustrating about this is that, Mike Norvell as a head coach is the offensive play caller. And, they'll get him a couple carries early in the game. He's averaging 7.5 yards a carry on, 3 or 4 touches. He's at, he'll have back-to-back carries gaining 15 yards. And then for the rest of the game, he's MIA. He's either being run on routes or he's not even being used. And we'll bring in freshman Cam Davis, who's going to be a stud here. Don't get me wrong. That dude's going to be a stud. You guys remember a running back by the name of Greg Jones? You remember what he did to you guys that one long time ago? Yeah, you remember that. Okay. Well, this dude is like the heir apparent to Greg Jones when he gets his body, which is almost always almost there. So he's great, but it's like this is our senior leader who's been the most dependable running back. And then I think wide receiver wise, there has been no dependable wide receiver, but the one who's been the least droppy is, and I mean, drop prone is Malik Benson, who transferred in from Alabama. He was a junior college transfer to Alabama, didn't play as much, came to Florida State, was supposed to be our number 1 wide receiver. That whole room has just been absolutely disappointing. I know we're not talking about coaches here, but the first coach that should be fired is, former Florida State player Ron Dugans. Love him as a player, hate him as a coach.
We had a situation like that a few years ago. Dre Bly. Remember that name
Yeah,
very well.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that one didn't turn out too well, and seemingly it hasn't turned out too well anywhere. Detroit Lions or Charlotte 49ers, from what I'm hearing.
Bro,
So
imagine being the coach, of the DBs for the Detroit Lions, and you get demoted to the 49ers. Bro.
you know,
He
he
probably
it was
you
like
know, he probably
the dude was on high. He went from North Carolina not doing jack. Like, I mean,
no, he
DB
didn't do
play was
anything in North
horrible.
Carolina, and then got
Goes to Detroit. I'm
promoted.
going with DC Hammer, boy. Oh boy, yeah, we go. Wait, I'm going to Charlotte again. Wait, what happened? Oh man,
No, you went from
him
Detroit,
and
like
Tim
North
Cross
Carolina.
both.
God almighty.
Tim Cross is over there too, and what's his? I forgot his name already. Former AD, not AD, but assistant head coach.
And
Oh,
then you got our former offensive line coach. What is his name? Went from North Carolina, where our offensive line was like tissue paper that's been run through water. He went from North Carolina to Georgia, and then wins 2 national championships with Georgia. I'm like,
Ugh.
what, bro? Like you just all of a sudden decided to coach, or
No, you know what changed was the level of players he had. It's not really
that's the
him.
thing. That's the thing. We had one, two or three off of the lines that he coached
Okay.
go to the NFL,
Oh wow.
and we
yeah,
were
that's the
still
thing.
off on the offensive line.
Carolina has put people in the NFL since Mac Brown's returned.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, what's kind of cool, Larry Fedora before then, he had more walk-ons that are in the NFL now than he actually had, recruited legitimately. Like I think we got
Wow.
the moniker of like walk-on you over
Yeah.
here because
Wow.
Cole Holcomb, the receiver for the Bills, just Alan, help me. Good Lord.
I'm about to say the receiver for the Bills now is Keon Coleman.
Yeah, from Florida State.
Yeah, but crazy hair guy. Crazy hair. Come on.
Oh, Mac Hollins
Dak Hollins. There you go. Another one right there.
walks around
Those are just
barefooted in Buffalo.
yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
We've had some success, but just like putting guys in the NFL that have stayed there for a little while. But the problem is just when you get to North Carolina, you can get to a certain threshold, and then after you get to that threshold, it's like they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we can't figure out over here.
You know, that is very interesting that you say that, because when Matt got to North Carolina, a lot of people, and I would imagine even some UNC fans, were like, has Mac lost his touch? Like, this ain't Texas 2003 anymore. Like, can he still coach? And then what you saw was an incredible drove of talent come to Charlotte, right? I mean, you guys
the
are
fifth in the country.
Yeah,
one
just
point
like
in time.
bringing talent. And
Yeah,
I
we was
remember
fifth in the
thinking,
country. Went to like a subpar FSU team and got jumped in the first half, and like
that's
tried
right.
to
I
make
remember that.
a
Not
mad
even
dash in the
subpar.
fourth quarter.
Not even subpar. Like, we were absolute hot garbage when that happened.
And that's why I think the bettors are like, you know what, we're going to favor North Carolina because technically they may be the least of the dumpster fire this year, but man, we find ways to lose to Florida State. We always do. We love doing
But somehow
it.
Cal still can't win an ACC game.
Correct. Correct. Listen, I'm just telling you right now, if you're a betting person, and I love Florida State, guys. I hope you know that and understand that. I love Florida State. I will die bleeding garnet and gold. But if there was a year to hammer, North Carolina -2.5, this was the year.
Can we cover the spread?
Yeah, like, this is the year.
We get a field goal win by 1. Can't even cover the jack-up spread at 2.5.
Because I'm telling you, until they prove otherwise, Florida State cannot score more than 16 points on U.S. soil. So as long as UNC can get to 20, you're good.
Well, North Carolina might have the ability to be like, hold my beer. I mean, we did give 70 to JMU. I mean, go on.
Listen, I wasn't
I
gonna
was
bring
in
it
the
up.
building for that, and it was the best
Oh
seats I've ever
man,
had in my life.
it was the best. What?
The best seats. The
Oh
best seats I ever
gosh.
had. It was the first row in the upper deck, 50-yard line, and the sun. It was an afternoon game, 12 o'clock
Yeah.
game, and the sun was perfectly like just behind the press box enough. I was in the shade the whole
Oh,
time. Great breeze. Oh, it was awesome.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember where I was. Let's see. This was the 21st. So it was the day after my birthday. I think we were playing because I went to the Cow game. I think that was the same day as the Cow game. And I remember Jesse texting me and said, dude, you have to go look at the score. And I was like, about who? He's like, UNC James Madison. I'm like, oh, is UNC beating them like 100-0? He's like, no, opposite. And I pulled it up on ESPN. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Like, I
I
remember
don't
just
drink
sitting there.
or smoke, but I wanted a cigarette and a beer at the same time. I did. It was a bad day.
Gosh.
And I took my
70.
buddy, my buddy who has been talking to me over the last couple of years, like, hey man, let's go to a game sometime. Like he's not a really big football
Yeah.
fan, but he was like, I'd like to go see a game in Chapel Hill. We would talk about it for 2 years. I'm like, I could have picked any other game in the last 2 years outside of this stupid one.
Man, yeah. Yeah, you'll have to ask Jesse about the
Good
time
times.
when Florida State had never lost an FCS school. And in 2021, we had played a really close game against Notre Dame, and I was there for that game. The following game was another home game against Jacksonville State, and they were a terrible team. And Florida State lost.
Was this before Dion?
No, this is 2021.
That's like, because wasn't Dion there in 21 or was it 22?
No, Dion never coached there. At
No,
Florida
he
State.
was right.
He was
Who
at
was
Jacksonville State. It was Willie Taggart before Mike Norvell. This was during a Mike Norvell season. This is Mike Norvell's second year. 2021, they started 0-4 that year, and we still beat y'all that year. Just as a
Yeah, I know.
sad
Yeah, Sam
reminder.
Howell's last year. It was
Yep.
great. I love that.
That's right.
Where did
oof.
Dion coach before then? Though?
Jacksonville State.
Jacksonville. And you said you guys were playing who that day?
We were playing. I'm sorry. He coached at Jackson State. This is Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So FBS. Jesse was in the stands when they hit the Hail Mary. Not even like a Hail Mary, kind of like a Hail Mary. He still had 20 yards, and we literally like two-hand touched the defensive back for them to win the game.
Oh man, that sounds just worse than what Chicago, the Bears the other night.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
man,
exactly.
Jesus.
I don't know how you don't cut that player.
Yeah, how is he not on the waiver wire right now?
Exactly.
Seriously.
That Bear player like waving by to the fans in the corner.
Yeah. And the
then
thing about it is they were
realizes
40
the
yards
play's
coming
going
downfield
on.
towards him, and he was still standing there back there
Yeah,
talking. And the
exactly.
Bears fans are like, "Turn around,
Well,
turn around."
Okay, so the guy who catches the touchdown pass, if you go back and watch, they did this whole breakdown of it. That was his responsibility. That was his player to cover.
Yeah.
Instead, he runs in
tipped it back
front
to him.
and tips the ball back to him. Like, nah, man, you might want to go. You might want to go back some groceries because that's your career.
Dude, it was so funny.
I think Pat McAfee said it best afterwards. He said the only
Jesus.
way that this gets better for him, he has to have like a game-winning or game-saving
Yes.
like interception in the Super Bowl. That's
Yes.
the only way that he gets out of this.
He will be forever remembered for this play.
Yeah. Boy. All right, Alan, get us out of here, brother.
Well, I mean, he kind of stole my last one. My last one was like, how much of last year's like debacle affected this year's team. But I mean, he kind of.
Yeah, what I can say to that
seems so sad.
I'm so sorry. What I can say to that too is, yeah, I mean, I'm not like those, unreasonable for, every fan base has.
But I mean,
fan.
I can ask you a different one. I mean,
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So worst case scenario, this like, do you just think like Florida State just implodes or explodes, like just sends everybody on their staff into the wind and say, all y'all get lost?
Yeah. That's a really go ahead.
Sorry. Secondly, there's other podcasts I listen to, and they think a lot of people think it's hilarious. Like, I'm sure FSU doesn't find this fun, but like FSU, like their fan base, and they just or whatever, and people associate with that like we want out of ACC, we want to play better competition, blah 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 blah, and then now FSU's 1-7, like they're like people, the outside is laughing at FSU. Does FSU feel that, like the laughter, because like they're like, oh my god, we're so much like Clemson too, but Clemson's not out there. I don't think Clemson's making it as known as FSU has made it known. And
Right.
North Carolina will be on the first train smoking too, but they're not. They're
But
not.
they won't
They're
say
not.
anything until Florida State or Clemson gets out first. Then they'll say,
They're not
"Hey,
going to say anything.
us too, please."
Yeah,
Please.
yeah, exactly.
But I guess FSU being in that, the limelight of the situation, but like, hey, we want out of here because we want, we're bigger than y'all, blah blah blah, whatever.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
now FSU staring a 1-7 season and
Correct.
is basically saddled with 1-7.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Feinbaum had himself a day. He
Oh.
bought himself a box of chocolates and everything, and
He
wouldn't
sure
shut up.
did.
Them and Clemson both.
Big-eared. Okay. Anyways, I'm not going to be mean. Anyways, let me
He's
ask.
a SEC whatever anyway.
Gosh, I can't stand him. Let me answer your second question because it'll actually help me answer the first question. Absolutely, Florida State fans feel this. We do feel this. Now, here's the thing that I think is a misnomer about this, because what does frustrate me is a few years ago, Oklahoma and Texas. Now, they literally basically said staying in the Big 12 would be a detriment to our program. We got to get out of here. Now, they didn't do it the way Florida State did it, and I'll explain that in just a second. But they did it, and they left to the SEC. And what did everybody say? Everybody, wow, Oklahoma, Texas, like what a coup for the SEC. What a great thing. This is awesome, awesome, blah, 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 right? So Florida State then comes out and says, we can't, this is untenable for us to stay in the ACC and compete with the likes of the Big Ten and the SEC, because you guys know we're getting almost $50 million projection-wise towards 2030, less money than these other two school conferences per year, right? And so,
million.
correct. And so because of Florida State's sunshine laws, that board of trustees meeting has to be public. Okay. So because it's public, now you have the whole world tuning in, and they're making comments and grandstanding, which you do in a board of trustees meeting. But most other schools, that would be private. And so what would have come out had that been private was Florida State is suing the ACC to get out. And that's what would have been it. But because the world had access into the board of trustees meeting, it looked like we were like, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread and blah, 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 blah. And so then the narrative came out like, oh, they're a bunch of whiny babies, blah, 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 blah. They don't appreciate what this, they're ruining college football, all this stuff. And I'm like, ruining college football? No. The SEC and the Big Ten started ruining college football when they started, to try to take up all these things. And really, I don't even blame the SEC and the Big Ten. I actually blame ESPN and Fox, because they're the ones that are actually controlling this. Okay. So
TV money.
Yeah, TV money. So Florida State makes a decision. They're gonna leave the conference. And at the time, and still, this will prove my point here. I think even though Florida State is 1-7. Okay, or sorry, take away the Miami game. Even though Florida State was 1-6, Florida State, I believe, has had 5 primetime games this season. 5. And those TV windows are decided almost a week or two before. So Florida State was still sucking, and people still wanted to, see Florida State lose again, but they wanted to see it. Florida State is still the number one brand, and I don't mean this I don't mean to offend any other team in the conference, but Florida State is the brand in the ACC, whether they're good or not. They get the eyeballs to the TV. So at the end of the day, Florida State getting out of the ACC because we want to still be able to compete in football and win championships and not be $50 million per year behind the SEC and the Big Ten makes sense. Anybody would want that for their program. And bottom feeders like Duke and Wake Forest, who've been feeding off the likes of UNC and Florida State and Clemson, they can go find something else because you can't. There's something I would like to say. I'm not going to say it. You can't keep riding the coattails of the big programs of the ACC anymore. I'm so sorry. Okay, because of that, because we want to get out. I think you have to look at the entirety of this coaching staff outside of Mike Norvell, because that's $65 million Florida State doesn't have right now to fire him. I'm going to say this, and I believe that 95% of the fan base feels this way. If we had the $65 million, Mike Norvell would be gone, because yes, he went 19-0. He went 23-4. This is catastrophic failure. How do you go from the worst to the best to the worst again in 5 years? No, he would be fired, but we don't have $65 million. I do think you have to look at every single person on this coaching staff. Secondary, he has recruited the high school ranks really, really well. We have a great secondary class coming in again. So far, we'll see if they stick. I think he's probably the only one in the program that is safe from firing. I think everybody else is on the chopping board, because what you don't want to happen is to go into next season while you're still in lawsuit, while you're still shelling out $250 million renovation, while you're shelling out all this money, millions of dollars for the lawsuit stuff, and you're trying to get out of this conference, and the product is going to suck. Because I don't know what it is for you guys in Chapel Hill, but it is empty. Most Florida State fans don't live in Tallahassee. It is a trek to get to Tallahassee. I'm 4 hours away. So it's an 8-hour drive round trip for me. Jesse lives 7 hours away, and he has to drive 7 hours there, stay the night, and drive 7 hours back. That's the situation for a lot of fans, driving from Miami, driving from Orlando, driving from Turdsville, also known as Gainesville, where the Gators are at, like driving from all over those places. Okay. And so it's not easy to get there. So the product that they're putting out on the field right now, that's why I'm saying I think you guys are going to walk into a half-empty stadium, because no one is about this. And if they put this out again next year, man, the blemish that it's going to send to the fan base, while we're also in the middle of trying to get out of this conference, it's just devastating.
Yeah, Carolina's had some issues. We're personally 3 from Chapel Hill, so I mean, we can go in one day and be back,
Right.
no problem. But you know, I feel like a lot of our fan base is relatively in the Triangle area. You know, whether it be Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Charlotte, in that area,
Right.
a good bit of our. And then
Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem. And then we've actually met a couple people that are out of state. You know, one of them, one of our famous fans, he always is in our comments, Tar Heel Ron. We met him a couple of years ago. He's from Georgia, I think Atlanta, Georgia. And there's been a few others as well. So
that's a haul.
No joke.
Yeah.
So we're relatively the same. Carolina football fans don't travel that well. There was actually more at Virginia than I was expecting, which I'm very thankful for, because I'm always been one about the fans. Like, if you can get there, you get there. I don't care what the product is on the field. We got to support our team, no matter what. And So I mean, I can honestly see where the struggle for you guys are. It's kind of similar to us.
We can just make a coaching trade.
Mac Brown, I love him because he's a Seminole. Love him as a Seminole.
See, I mean, he might be better.
I think he needs to go play some more golf. I think that's where his. I honestly actually want to ask you guys, because there's been the conversation that a lot of people have felt like this was his last season. Do you guys buy into that, or do you think he's back next year?
I'm of the mindset personally that at the beginning of this year, I felt like this is going to be your rebuilding year.
Yeah.
I felt like your rebuilding year is going to go pretty good considering the schedule. The schedule did not, warrant 4-4 looking at it. Okay. especially a 70-point loss or 70 points dropped on you by JMU and things of that nature. But as we sit right now, as a matter of fact, Alan kind of changed my mind a little bit on this. I think was it today, Alan, or was it yesterday that we talked for a few minutes? I think it was yesterday because we were discussing your son's
Probably
birthday.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know where he got this idea, but it's been floating around. He can obviously, expand on it a little bit more. But the idea that when the JMU game happened, obviously Max said in the locker room, and it got out immediately that, hey, if I'm not the right guy, I won't be here anymore. And they say he quote unquote quit, but that's all he really said.
Right.
And that was it. The team immediately said, no, Mac, you're the guy, and it keeps on going. But what if Mac internally is saying, okay, this is it for me. It's time for me to walk away from this, because we are starting to see decommits, more
Right.
decommits than Carolina has saw since Mac returned. Like you said, the influx of talent that's come in, we've had some pretty solid, top 25, top 30 recruiting classes come through Carolina consistently over the last 6 years now. And another good one seemingly coming in this coming year. But what if Mac says, I'm a press conference right before the NC State game, which is our last game of the year, and says, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going to retire and get everybody up, because we are on a 3-game losing streak to NC State, our rival. So why not maybe potentially do that? So I'm on the mindset of, currently for me it's a coin flip, but I'm kind of leaning that like 50.5 if we're doing point spreads of or percentage spreads for Mac retiring, because he won't get fired. He will definitely retire.
Right. Okay. So let me give you one more question then. These next 4 games, I believe for you guys, are absolutely winnable. I mean, you're at Florida State, very winnable as long as you score 20 points. You got Wake Forest coming into you, Snuggy Hill, the fastest growing fan base in the country, as they like to lie about. You should win that game. You have Boston College, which has proven not to be as good as they started the season out to be. And then you have your rivalry game against North Carolina State, which their quarterback just retired. So,
I'm sorry. That's not funny, because that hit he took was vicious, but
Yeah,
the
it
way
was
you
vicious.
just
I
threw
was
it
a
out
Grayson
there.
McCall fan at Coastal, because we're 3 hours away from Coastal Carolina as well. So I keep an eye on them from time to time.
Yeah. I mean, he was a great quarter. I loved watching him at Coastal Carolina, but he retired. That's what he said. I'm retiring from football. I think these next 4 games are very winnable. So let's say you finish 8-4. Do you want Matt back? Or let's say you're going to win Saturday, but you also finish, so that puts you at 5, and you lose the next 3, so you're at was that 5-7? Yeah, you're at 5-7. Do you want Mac back?
Go. Definitely, it has to
gotta
happen.
go.
Definitely at that point in time. Hey, if we get to a bowl game, we face a good team, and we win that bowl game, which we haven't done in quite a little while, I'm open to the idea. Alan, you go ahead. I figure this would be an easy one for you, Alan. You've been the one over here. It's not Mac's fault. It's not him. It's not him at all. We've gotten a heated debates about this.
Yeah, but I mean, time, people are allowed to change their opinions.
Yeah, that's
people are allowed to change their opinions. And I don't necessarily think it's Mac's fault, but
considering there's been a lot of stuff going on off the field over the last 3 to 4 weeks, 5 weeks, really.
But okay, so Jeff Collins comes in as with the reputation of being highly aggressive, minister of mayhem. He likes to blitz. But go back and look, but not take out the Virginia game. Go back and look at the amount of blitzing that he's done this season. It's not a lot. It's there's been no mayhem. There's been calm, cool, and collective. So the question has been posed throughout beat writers, message boards. Is there a reason why Jeff Collins hasn't been as aggressive? Is it the head coach saying, hey, look, we can't be doing this? Or is he being neutered? I don't know. I'm not in the meetings. But it would stand to have a thought that something's going on that's cause like Jay Bateman, he run this exotic type defense. He really didn't do a lot of blitzing. Gene Chizik. We brought Gene Chizik back. I mean, and you see how that went. I mean, Gene
Yeah.
Chizik was Gene Chizik. I kind of agree that I think maybe football's passed him by. I will say what Nathan said. I'm glad that what happened with Ty Lee happened under Mac's tenure because
Absolutely.
Mac Brown he's a leader
Yeah.
and he was the only one that you could trust to lead the team through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, if Mac there's only 3 coaches that are currently coaching that's won a national title, and Matt Brown's
That's
one
right.
of them.
That's right.
So I mean, if you let Matt Brown go, you don't know what's going to happen to Bryce Baker, just number one.
Quarterback.
I mean,
recruit that
that's
we got coming in.
A QB commit that's heir apparent to Sam and Drake.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's going to happen to him. They're still in the running for was it Keandre Harrison?
Kendra Harrison, the
Kendra
5-star
Harrison
tight end and basketball recruit.
Yeah, that has a scholarship offer from both UNC football and UNC basketball to play both.
Mhm.
So from the health side of the program, you want to keep Matt Brown.
Yeah.
For the future of the program, maybe you want to go a different way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's come out recently that the board of trustees and the university don't even like football in general.
Yeah, I know. I heard that. I remember that. I was like, whoa.
They could
It's
care
been a
less.
hidden secret, but now it's not so hidden anymore.
Jeez.
And it would be, I think it would be more newsworthy if it had come if it wasn't happening in the middle of a 4-game losing streak.
Right.
Like, oh, you're just looking for excuses.
Right.
Not really.
Right.
Because
Right.
when you're
There's a lot of stuff going on. That's why I honestly think the only people that could come in and actually have a chance here are former players, and I've said Jeff Saturday being the biggest one.
Yeah.
But what Alan was talking about earlier when he's talking about blitzing and everything else, I think that all has to do with one person, and that's number 7. That's Kamen.
Mhm.
When Kamen came back, we saw it this past week. When Kamen came back, and this is his first week, he's been healthy.
Yeah.
Truly healthy. Outside of the very first game, which was the Minnesota game.
Yeah.
Right. And keep that in mind. Keep our best 2 performances. Minnesota, Virginia, both had a healthy Kamen Rucker. Those have been our best performances. And we've talked, I mean, there's been questions from Andrew Jones, an insider from Tar Heel Illustrated about it that we've had on this program, talking about what has been the difference with a healthy Kamen Rucker.
Yeah.
And Max says astronomical. Jeff Collins says astronomical. It's big time. The confidence that he has, because he came back a couple of weeks ago against, was it Pittsburgh, Allen? I think it was Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
And you could tell they only brought him in on 3rd downs, and he basically just had him sitting in the middle linebacker spot, and he was a blitzing middle linebacker. And that was it. That's all they had him doing. And Kamen's just not that kind of guy. He's an edge rusher. He is a guy that a Florida State and North Carolina alum and Jason Staples. I don't know if you know that name. Okay.
Yep.
He's talked about, like, in the NFL, I'm pounding the table for that guy because even though he's undersized, he's just a dog. I mean, Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Undersized, but a dog.
But
He's a guy that, I'm not saying he'd be Aaron Donald, don't get me confused there, but a guy that you still go, pound the table
the
for.
Prototype. Yeah.
Right. So it brings a whole different dynamic. Kamen Rucker's been a leader on the team. He has been on the team for the longest. This is his 5th or 6th year, I believe. And he's just been that guy for Carolina. And having him back gives that D line, kind of takes the pressure off of him a little bit. Yeah. Because, now they're like, we got to compensate for that guy.
Right.
And, we have a cultural issue and attitude. That's a problem that we have. And with Kamen Rucker, that attitude, like, we don't have that issue as much. You see Carolina play the way you saw Carolina play.
Right.
And, that's just my opinion on it. And Alan, me and you can talk about it at a later time and whatnot.
Well, I will tell you, I'll tell you guys, like, if Colin comes in with a defensive mindset that we're going to try to put pressure. I mean, Florida State is last on top, worst 5, bottom 5 in the country, I believe, in pressure rate. It's a stat that Jesse loves to talk about because it really shows like the deficiency and deficit of our offensive line. They just don't communicate very well.
FSU has a lot of injuries on the interior.
Yes, we've had a lot, and you're right. We've had injuries, but even before those injuries, we were giving up pressure. Our pressure rate was just stupid high. Like they were getting to the quarterback so fast. It wasn't even funny. I mean, we'd see free rushers in our A gaps getting to the quarterback, and your A gap before they were injured. Our center, who's been with our program since the very beginning, and was almost I think he was an all ACC center last year. He has regressed. Our tackles have regressed. I mean, we're playing one tackle guy who's been off and on injured this whole time. He's basically almost playing on like one leg, and we're playing him. And so if UNC comes in with an aggressive mindset on defense, I mean, you're gonna wreck the day because that offense can't block win right now.
Sounds like a lot of Amari Campbell coming through the A gap. That's exactly what that sounds like.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That's gonna be that's a question because my thing is right now, we saw what North Carolina did last week, and that's great. I mean, that is the most complete game we've saw Carolina play in quite some time. But can they Can they be consistent with it? And that's the biggest question. We're going to find out. I'm not saying got to go out there and get 10 sacks. That is not what I'm saying.
Right.
But can you show me the same level of aggression the same level of discipline each and every down that you showed me last week?
That's
playing a full complete game instead of playing. We had an issue. We could play kind of like you was talking about earlier with the long third downs. We can play 2 great downs, and then that third down is just horrible, just god awful. Yeah. And you keep doing that, eventually they're going to score the ball. Right. That's what's going to happen. So, this is going to be an interesting game, man. I think it's going to be I'm going to ask you your score prediction right here in a minute. So just go ahead and get to pondering on that. But we're going to go one more thing, and then we're going to get out of here. One more thing, then the prediction, and then whatnot. Because honestly, I am still trying to figure out what my prediction is going to be, and we'll do our preview and prediction tomorrow. But this is going to be a very fun game and interesting to say the least. Both fan bases, I think, are going to be grimacing the entire time that this game is going on. And we're going to be doing a live watch party, man. This is going to be a fun one, 3:30. It's our first 3:30 that we've had in a while. We've been having a bunch of 12 o'clocks. But, I mean, that's what happens.
Because nobody wants to watch us.
Nope. Not one bit. But let's talk about something fun. Something that, the Florida State fans that do get to come down to Tallahassee and have a good time. And maybe some of the Carolina fans will get to witness some of this stuff. Talk to us about some of the traditions that maybe we don't know about that goes on down there in Tallahassee.
Oh, man. Well, listen, if you're a UNC fan and you're coming to Tallahassee, obviously, there's so many great things about Florida State. You have to visit the Sod Cemetery. It's on the, I believe, north side of the stadium. It's where Florida State, through the history of its program, have been underdogs on the road, and we've gone and won on those. And so we cut up grass or whatever. I think UNC was one a couple of years ago, and when you guys were ranked 5th, we were underdogs. Just so you know, we took some grass from you guys. We buried it in a cemetery by the practice field. It's called the Sod Cemetery. It's pretty cool. You can push a button on there, and it kind of tells you the history of the Sod Cemetery. So that's a big tradition. They call it, they do sod talk before the games. Obviously, I think the most famous one of the most famous college football traditions in the country is Chief Osceola and Renegade. They plant the spear. It is I don't care how terrible Florida State is. When I'm at the game, I literally will want to run through a wall after that moment. When he plants the spear at the middle of the field, it's literally one of the coolest traditions. We also have I believe a bronze statue out in front of Doak Campbell Stadium of Chief Osceola and Renegade, and it gets lit every Friday before the game, and it burns. That's why they call it unconquered for the Seminoles. There's the only Indian tribe in the history of the United States that was never conquered by U.S. government. So that happens. But one of my favorite traditions is at the beginning of the fourth quarter, Florida State installed these, really cool light things that they do. I don't know if you've seen that Kevin James thing at the NASCAR when he's like, gentlemen, or he's like, God
Yeah.
bless this, God bless, and God bless America, gentlemen, start your engines. So they like that whole video, dude. The stadium literally loses its freaking mind every time, and so that thing comes on, and
Kevin
you hear,
James.
yeah, Kevin James, and you hear
King of Queens.
70,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs. God bless the troops. God bless something. And God bless America. Gentlemen, start your engines. And we just go nuts. I mean, absolutely nuts.
That's really cool.
It's
That
a
is
fun,
pretty
it's
cool,
a
man.
fun
That is
moment.
awesome.
I could see it.
Yeah. And plus, in the fourth quarter, it's like Mike Norvell's been really big. They, everybody holds up their hand, but Mike Norvell has been super big about the fourth quarter and how the way they condition, the whole climb mentality, that in the fourth quarter, Florida State should be the freshest team on the field. And the rest of the team, like you saw that last year against Duke. Duke was winning the whole time. And then the fourth quarter hit, and we literally outscored them. I think it was like 32-10. Like we just blew them out.
Oh yeah,
because it's like the fresh. And so that whole thing with Kevin James is kind of like somebody just literally shot 100 cc's of adrenaline into your veins, and you're like ready to go.
God dang, Paul Blart. I love some Kevin James, man. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
Kevin James is great, man.
Yeah.
We live his life in a sense because we're both UPS drivers.
All right, okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I like when they were singing "If You Like Pina Coladas." when he
Yeah.
caught the rain with the KFC bucket on Grown Ups.
Yes.
He was sitting there doing his thing. Oh God, I love it! I love it to death, man. Hey, well, we've had a great old time tonight, man. This has been an awesome one. I didn't realize it's went as long as it has. I've enjoyed this. It's
Long
been a fun
time.
time, and I had a feeling it was going to be, man. I've been looking forward to getting with you guys over there at Plant the Spear. If you are a Florida State fan and you have not listened to Plant the Spear, be sure go down below. Go check out their YouTube channel. They've got websites. They've got everything, man. Go check them out. They do a great job over there. They love their Florida State Seminoles. Jesse and Michael both. They do a great job. And keep an eye on the coverage for this game as well as us as we get ready for game day on Saturday, 3:30 kick down there at the Doak. Carolina trying to find a win down there. That is for sure. It is it's a daunting task, and Florida State's trying to find a win, period. So it's going to be a fun time for both of these teams. They're going to be scrambling to save their lives over there. But, man, we absolutely appreciate you coming out here. It's been so much fun, and looking forward to maybe doing some stuff like this in the future. But let's get out of here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. And as always,
there's always basketball season.
I love that. That's great.
Dude, I've been waiting on this podcast. I've been waiting on the podcast all day just so I could say that right there.
Go Heels.
Go Heels.
Go Knowles.
Don't whoa, no!